A body among giants. The day silence screamed. In the shadow of California's towering redwoods, a hiker stumbled upon something that didn't belong to nature. It was early morning, fog still curling between the trunks of the ancient sequoias, when a shape lying beside a creek caught his eye. At first he thought it was debris, maybe a sleeping bag left behind. But as he got closer, the horror unfolded. A woman's lifeless body, face down, partially covered by pine needles and moss. No ID, no phone, no bag, no signs of struggle, yet something felt deeply wrong. She was dressed neatly as if she'd planned only a short walk. But how did she end up in this forgotten stretch of forest, far from the usual trails? And more chilling, who was she? The trees had been silent witnesses. The forest knew something, but it wasn't talking. This was the birth of the mystery we now call Jane Doe of the Redwoods. When authorities arrived, they treated the area like a crime scene, though nothing overtly criminal had yet emerged. The woman's body showed no obvious trauma, no bruises, no blood, no signs of foul play. But something was off. Her hands were clean, too clean, no fingerprints, not worn off, not damaged, just absent. As if someone had wiped away her identity. When her prints were scanned through national databases, nothing. No match in missing persons, no criminal records, no ID hits. It was as if she'd never existed. Her DNA was uploaded to genealogy databases, a desperate attempt to connect her to someone, somewhere. Again, silence. She wasn't listed as missing. No one was looking for her. And yet, here she was, dead, alone, and unnamed in the wilderness, a perfect ghost. Somewhere out there, a truth was hiding. But in the absence of answers, the forest only echoed with questions. Ready to keep digging? Subscribe now and join us as we follow each chilling thread of this case. Your curiosity fuels these investigations. The coroner estimated her age, between 25 and 35. Her hair was neatly trimmed, her nails carefully manicured with light nude polish. She wore clean, practical clothing, not the kind someone would wear for a rugged hike, but more like she had stepped out for a quick walk. Strangely, her shoes showed almost no signs of dirt, no mud, no forest debris, no indication that she had wandered deep into the wilderness. It was as if she had been placed there. Even more unsettling, there were no visible signs of trauma, no bruises, no scratches, no broken bones. Her face held a peaceful expression, not one twisted in pain or fear. When the autopsy came back, the findings were chilling. She hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. She was severely dehydrated. But why? And how? There was no evidence of captivity, no rope burns, no sedation marks, just absence of food, of water, of reason. Toxicology was the next hope, but the results came back negative. No common poisons, no drugs, no alcohol. It was as if her body simply shut down. Natural causes were ruled out, but nothing pointed clearly to homicide either. She was healthy, young, and yet dead. Investigators began whispering one word behind closed doors: deliberate. Whoever she was, and however she got there, someone had gone to extreme lengths to erase every trace of her story. It was a small detail, easy to overlook. But detectives kept returning to the earrings. 2 silver studs shaped like crescent moons, elegant and unbranded, not mass-produced, not from any major retail store. They looked custom-made. One officer swore he'd seen a similar pair in an old missing person report. But hours of searching turned up nothing. Still, something about them felt intentional, like a symbol or a message. The woman had no purse, no wallet, no jewelry, except the earrings. Her ears weren't pierced recently. The skin showed long-term wear, suggesting she wore them often. Were they sentimental? A gift? A clue? The metal wasn't cheap. It was sterling silver, carefully polished. And that crescent shape, it wasn't just decorative, it matched markings carved into a nearby tree, barely visible unless the light hit just right. That discovery changed everything. Was it coincidence? Or had someone marked the place in advance? Officers canvassed the surrounding area and found two more trees, each with the same crescent scratch, spaced like silent sentinels around where the body had been found. Whoever left her there didn't just choose a random patch of a forest. They chose that exact spot and marked it. For what reason, no one knew, but the crescent suggested something ritualistic. And if there was a message, Jane Doe had taken it to the grave. 2 days after the discovery, forensic teams returned to the scene, hoping to find anything the initial sweep missed. The ground was soft from recent rain, ideal for preserving impressions. That's when a technician noticed faint footprints, not near the body, but around the perimeter, forming a near-perfect circle. They were shallow, like someone walking carefully, deliberately, but here's what chilled everyone. The prints didn't match any of the first responders, or Jane Doe. They were too large to be hers. Men's boots, size 11, with an unusual tread pattern that didn't match standard hiking shoes, and they weren't leading in or out. They just circled. Once, no pacing, no hesitation, just one silent loop. As if someone had stood there, watching, waiting, or performing something. A few feet from the prints, nestled beneath wet leaves, they found something else. A burned-out matchstick. Just one. It hadn't been there before. No signs of a campfire, no cigarettes. Just that lone charred sliver of wood, placed carefully, like an offering. The lead investigator noted in his report, "It feels staged. Every element seems chosen, not random. This wasn't a dump site. It was a ritual space." But if that was true, what kind of ritual ends with a nameless body beneath the redwoods? With no name, no ID, and no matches in any database, the investigation turned to one of the last available tools: facial reconstruction. A skilled forensic artist was brought in to digitally rebuild her features, cheekbones, nose structure, lips, eyes, using the preserved condition of her skull and soft tissue as a guide. When the image was finished, it was striking. Not just because of its realism, but because of the look in her eyes. Sad, distant, familiar. The image was released to the public. News stations covered it. Social media shared it. "Do you recognize this woman?" the headlines asked. But there was no answer. No friend, no family member, no co-worker stepped forward. Even the most obscure missing person forums came up empty. It was like calling out into a void. She had no past, or someone had erased it completely. Tips began to trickle in, as they always do. A waitress in Oregon, a hitchhiker in Nevada, a woman seen boarding a bus in San Diego, all dead ends. Similar faces, similar stories, but not her. No one knew the woman in the image, or if they did, they weren't talking. The forest had given her back, piece by piece, but the world seemed determined not to remember her. She had a face now, but still no name, no voice, no history, just a haunting stare that begged the same question: who was she? A week after the body was found, a search team ventured farther into the woods, beyond the logging roads and marked trails. That's when they found it. A small cabin, half collapsed, buried in the undergrowth. It wasn't on any map, no driveway, no utilities, just rotting wood, vines choking the windows, and a door that hung crooked on rusted hinges. At first glance, it looked abandoned, a forgotten relic, but inside told a different story. There was dust, yes, cobwebs, signs of age, but also a candle melted down to the base, sitting in a shallow metal dish, a cup with a dry tea bag still inside, and on the table, a torn page from a spiral notebook. The only legible words scrawled in smeared ink: She was ready. No name, no date, nothing else. The forensics team collected what they could, but the cabin yielded no fingerprints, no DNA. It was like someone had been there, but had taken great care to leave nothing behind. Investigators checked property records. The land had no listed owner. It was in a legal grey zone, technically part of federal forest, but never officially claimed. The location of the cabin was unsettling, only a short hike from where Jane Doe was found. Whoever wrote that note, if it was about her, may have watched everything unfold and walked away without a trace. Roughly 10 days after the discovery, a wildlife photographer came forward. She had been hiking in the redwoods the week prior, documenting animal movement using sound-triggered cameras. One of her devices had captured something unusual. Not an image, but audio. The mic was set to pick up low-volume forest sounds. At 3:12 a.m. on the night before, Jane Doe was found, the recorder activated. What it picked up was chilling. A single footstep on dry leaves, then another. Then silence. 20 seconds passed. Then a woman's voice, muffled, barely audible. "I'm here," she whispered. Then nothing for nearly a minute. Finally, just before the recording cut off, a rustle and a low hum, like a song or a chant. It wasn't recognizable, but it didn't sound accidental. Experts enhanced the audio, slowed it, filtered it. Still, the words weren't clear. The woman's voice didn't match any known samples, and most disturbing of all, when investigators returned to retrieve the camera, it was gone. Just a pile of broken twigs where the tripod had stood. Was it Jane Doe's voice? Was she calling for help, or announcing her presence? And who, or what, had silenced her after? Just as the case was losing momentum, a detective researching cold cases stumbled upon something uncanny. In 2015, nearly 300 miles north, another unidentified woman had been found in a forest, this time near the Trinity Alps. No ID, no missing person match, clean clothes, no signs of trauma, no apparent cause of death. And one more eerie detail, she too wore crescent-shaped earrings, nearly identical to Jane Doe's. The similarities were disturbing. Both women had been placed, not dropped, in remote, carefully chosen locations. Both had no history in national databases. No loved ones came forward, no cause of death, no DNA matches. And now, both were linked by a shared symbol, the silver crescent. Was it coincidence? 2 women, 2 forests, 2 moons? Or was someone staging these scenes, choosing these women, and marking them with something only they would understand? A signature, a calling card, or something older, something ritualistic? An investigator dug deeper into the 2015 case. It had gone cold within weeks. The body was cremated before the crescent connection was ever noticed. The earrings were kept in evidence, but never linked to anything until now. 2 women, no names, no past, found years apart, but suddenly part of the same silent story. In a final attempt to understand the crescent symbol, investigators turned to a local historian, an eccentric archivist who had spent decades cataloguing obscure regional folklore. When shown the earrings and the symbols etched into the trees, he went pale. Without saying a word, he left the room and returned moments later with a book so old its spine was held together with twine. He opened to a page marked in pencil. There it was, a hand-drawn image of a crescent moon, identical to the one found on Jane Doe's earring. Below it, a name, the Silent Circle. According to the text, the crescent was a mark used by a forgotten sect that believed the forest was sacred ground and that certain people were chosen to return to it, becoming one with the land in silence. No violence, no rituals as we know them, just disappearance. The historian issued a chilling warning. If This mark has returned. You are not looking for a killer. You're looking for believers. That changed everything. The investigation wasn't just about a murder anymore. It was about something that had roots, hidden deep in the forest's past. Was Jane Doe a victim or a participant? A breakthrough came from an unexpected place, a small roadside motel over 50 miles from the Redwoods. A night clerk, reviewing old guest logs, noticed a handwritten name scratched out in one of the entries dated just 2 days before Jane Doe's discovery. Underneath the scribble, faint impressions remained, a name beginning with L, a possible last name with Ensign. She had stayed only one night, paid in cash, no car registered. Security footage was long overwritten. The room had been cleaned thoroughly, but something caught the attention of investigators. The trash had never been emptied. Inside, they found a crumpled receipt from a gas station and a single torn photograph. The image was blurred, but it showed 2 women standing beneath a tree. One of them resembled Jane Doe. No one at the motel remembered her. She hadn't spoken much, didn't use the vending machine, didn't ask for directions. She had come alone, left quietly, and vanished into the forest. But the photo suggested she wasn't always alone. If she had a companion, where were they now? The receipt from the motel trash led police to a rural gas station miles from the forest. To everyone's surprise, this station had a still-working surveillance system. The timestamp matched the receipt. They watched the footage closely, and there she was. Jane Doe, alive, calm, wearing the same clothes she was found in. She stood at pump 3, then walked into the store. Her expression was unreadable, focused, almost serene. But it wasn't her that startled investigators. It was the man who entered the store a few seconds after. Tall, grey jacket, face partially obscured by a baseball cap. He never spoke to her, didn't glance her way, but he walked directly to the ATM, withdrew cash, then left. Outside, he leaned against a black SUV. Jane Doe exited the store, walked past him, and gave the faintest nod. It wasn't enough to call it a meeting, but it wasn't nothing either. By the time police traced the vehicle through traffic cams, it had vanished. Who was the man, and why did Jane Doe acknowledge him, if only for a second? Technicians scoured the motel's Wi-Fi router and found a single device connected during Jane Doe's brief stay. Though the MAC address was anonymized, forensic tracking led to a proxy server routed through multiple layers. But eventually, a single email login pinged, HollowTree970. It was a ghost account, no sent messages, no contacts, just one draft saved. It read, "I was never lost. I was chosen." The chilling message had no timestamp. It could have been written minutes before she walked into the forest, or weeks earlier. No other data was recoverable. No browsing history. No connected services. Just that one haunting line. Investigators speculated whether the account was hers, or if someone had planted the message as a red herring. But the timing was too precise. It felt personal, like a final declaration. Had she known what was coming? Just when the team began doubting every lead, a retired librarian from Humboldt County came forward. She claimed to remember a flyer posted months ago, a missing person poster for a young woman with crescent moon earrings. She said the image was grainy, black and white, and had only a first name, Lena. It had appeared on a corkboard in the local library, and then disappeared within days. Security footage from the library showed a figure removing the flyer. They wore gloves and a hoodie. No facial recognition, but the timestamp was revealing, 2:14 a.m., long after closing. The intruder had broken in, removed the flyer, and left without triggering alarms. Why remove a missing person flyer that barely got any attention? Who wanted Lena, if that was her name, to stay forgotten? And how many other traces had already been erased before anyone thought to look? Someone wasn't just hiding her past. They were curating her story. A new search team returned to the Redwood clearing, this time with drones and thermal imaging. While scanning the area, a technician noticed something odd. A perfect square of disturbed earth, too geometrically precise to be natural. Buried 6 inches beneath it was an object wrapped in oilcloth. Inside was a mirror, old, cracked, framed in rusted metal. It had initials carved faintly on the back. LJ. The glass reflected distorted images, but in the moment the drone hovered above it, the operator swore he saw a second face, not Jane Doe's, staring back. Naturally, no one else witnessed it. When replayed, the footage showed only forest and sky, but the drone operator refused to return to that section of woods again. The mirror was taken in as evidence. Analysts called it symbolic, perhaps, sentimental. But what disturbed them most was its placement, directly beneath where Jane Doe's body had rested. A mirror in the soil, a reflection facing the sky. Was it a grave marker or a signal? During a final review of all witness reports, an overlooked detail surfaced. A park ranger had filed a minor disturbance report 3 days before the body was found. A camper claimed to have seen a woman in a white sweater, alone, walking barefoot near the tree line. He said she wasn't lost. She never looked around. She just walked slowly between the trees, like she was following something only she could see. The camper tried to call out to her, but she didn't respond, just disappeared into the mist. When asked why he never followed up, he simply said, "I figured she was part of a spiritual thing, some kind of retreat." That ranger had marked the sighting location on his GPS. It matched the exact radius of the crescent carvings, which meant Jane Doe, or someone who looked just like her, had entered the circle voluntarily. Was she led there? Was it a test, or was this always her destination? 6 months passed. The case faded from the news. Leads dried up. But then, in an entirely different national park, the Olympic Forest, Washington, a park staff member discovered a tree with a symbol carved deeply into its trunk, a crescent moon. Identical. Same size, same angle, same strange energy. No body was found. No Jane Doe. Not yet. But the forest surrounding the carving was eerily quiet. Game cameras in the area glitched for several nights in a row. One captured static at 2:11 a.m., the exact time the library break-in had occurred. Police departments across state lines were quietly contacted. Analysts began to suspect they were dealing with more than one person, maybe not victims, but participants. Was this a movement, a ritual, a calling? And the most frightening question of all, how many Jane Does were still out there, waiting for the right moment to vanish? In late autumn, the lead detective on Jane Doe's case received a package with no return address. Inside, a single black envelope, no stamps, no fingerprints. It contained only one thing, a Polaroid. On it, a woman, mid-30s, facing away from the camera, standing in a clearing surrounded by redwoods. Her earrings glinted in the light, crescent moons, again. But it wasn't Jane Doe. On the back of the photo, written in looping script, "She's not the first, she won't be the last. No location, no date." But pinned in the corner of the envelope was a dried sequoia needle, just like the ones that had covered the original body. Was this a threat, a confession, or an invitation? The detective resigned 2 weeks later, officially, for personal reasons. Jane Doe was buried in a cemetery near the forest's edge. Her headstone reads, "Unknown, but not forgotten." But months later, someone left a small notebook at the grave. It was leather-bound, weather-worn. Inside were a few torn-out pages, but what remained was terrifying. The first legible entry read, "I dreamed of the redwoods again, of the circle, of the mirror. I know where I'm supposed to go." Another line, "They said the silence is the answer, that I'll be light when it's done." The handwriting did not match any known samples, but on the back cover, barely visible under UV light, were the initials LJ, the same as the mirror. Was this her journal, or someone else's? Either way, the last line, written in a hurried scrawl, closed the mystery with a warning. She left her name behind on purpose. And so we're left with a face, a body, a trail of symbols, but no name, no family, no final answer. Jane Doe of the Redwoods became more than just an unidentified woman. She became a symbol herself, of how easily someone can disappear, how silence can be louder than screams, and how a forest can swallow secrets whole. Whether she was a victim, a believer, or something in between, we may never know, but her story refuses to die. It lingers in whispers, in crescents carved into bark, in flickering footage, and in the echoes of footsteps that never leave a trail. And maybe that's exactly what she wanted. If this story gripped you, subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover more mysteries like this one. The forest may never speak, but together we can keep listening.